Hi ladies and gents, Pond here with another video for Rise of Empires Ice and Fire. Today we're on to part 2 of my guides to counters and crowd control, CC, in Rise of Empires, and we are looking at silencing. So silencing is a skill which is basically going to stop your opponent's heroes activating their combat skills, and it will activate on a specific number of turns, and it may be directed at one squad in your opponent's legion, 2 or even 3, depending on which hero you're using that has the silencing ability. So silencing will stop combat skills that either activate immediately or do require some prep. So say if someone activates a skill 2 turns before and then you activate silencing on that turn, so they initiated the skill on skill 6, for instance, and it takes 1 turn prep, so it should activate on turn 7. If your hero silences them on turn 7, that will stop that skill activating. Silencing does not work against prep skills, passive skills, or status skills. So that's why later in the game you'll see more of the high-end heroes having combinations of prep and status skills from their 3 combat skills, because these are going to be less susceptible to CC, to crowd control elements such as silencing. The other thing to note is you will see that silencing does have a bigger impact on the lower end, so orange heroes and season heroes 1 to 3 or 4. Most of those will have combat skills, even though, having said that, you will still see some SX heroes with combat skills. So we're going to get straight in and have a look at the skill in use. So we've got a hero's duel here from last weekend. I'm just going to be showing my alliance mate Nafina in action against someone from State 48, and she has, let's go to the next one, she has Army Breaker in her legion. So on Army Breaker's 5th skill, he has the ability to silence 2 squads for 2 turns, and we're going to see this activate several times in the battle. You can see that he activated 10 skills in the battle. So let's get started. So we've got footmen against, we've got the cavalry against footmen. So cavalry have a higher combat speed. They're going to be getting their skills off first. And here we go. Formation Tranquility is Army Breaker's skill. So he's activated that. So now we're going to see 2 of the enemy squads silenced for 2 turns. So you can see there's that silencing effect. So on turn 1, Peacebring on the front row, he has not been able to activate any of his combat skills, so there's no damage coming from him. Iron Hand did get his skills off, and then Valkyrie on the back row, you're going to see here, is also silenced. So that is only 1 out of the 3 heroes able to get any combat damage off. And you can already say, okay, yes, footmen, cavalry counter footmen anyway, and there's another tranquility going here, then cavalry should usually win against footmen, but this is going to actually kind of enhance that difference. So you've got the silencing there on the front row. We've also now got silencing on the second row, because with this silencing skill and silence on the back row, so the silencing skill that Army Breaker has, it doesn't stack. So what's happened is, because the front and back rows were already silenced, it has then silenced the middle row. So that front and back row have now had their 2 turns of silence, and they, unless it activates again for a 3rd time in a row, then they won't be silenced on this turn. But you will see that Iron Hand in that middle row will have the 2nd turn of silence. So there we go. Peacebring was only able to get off his first skill in the turn 3. There we had Iron Hand's Legion silence still. And then Valkyrie did manage to get some battles off. Please note, you might have seen there that Valkyrie's troops were disarmed. Here we go. And Tranquility happening again. So we're going to see more silencing for the 3rd time in the battle on turn 4. This back row of troops, if you see they're disarmed, it's because Valkyrie's 2nd skill stops her own troops from basic attacking. So there we go. That front row is silenced again. Iron Hand is not, because he's activated a skill. And this is also an interesting point. So that back row is suppressed because it was actually silenced by Army Breaker and suppressed by Avalanche. Avalanche's 5th skill has an element of suppression if Hack and Slash hits the back row in an additional hit, then it does cause suppression for 1 turn. Suppression is a higher level of counter compared to silencing, and I'll be doing a video on that soon, and that's why the suppression took precedent over the silencing. But you can see on 5 turns, Peacebringer on the front row and Valkyrie on the back row, they've actually been silenced for 4 of the first 5 turns. Let's look at the difference in terms of the troop count. On the cavalry, you have 2 heroes that are healing in Lawman and Army Breaker. On this combination of footmen, you don't have any healers, and they're almost at max troop count on the cavalry side, while the front row here, Peacebringer, only 40,000 troops. So this is kind of the, yes, that kind of difference is magnified because it's footmen against cavalry. Of course, that is a factor. If it was archers, it could be potentially be closer there, or there'd be more kills. There would be more cavalry that are being killed potentially. But still, that element of silencing, particularly in this battle where Army Breaker got off 3 lots of the skill in the first 4 turns, he's actually given, it was 6 lots of silencing in total in this battle. Unfortunately, you kind of missed out on... well, no, if you take it by turns, sorry, he's actually silenced 10 times, because it was the front row and the back row were silenced 4 times each, and then the middle row was silenced for 2 turns. So that's 10 lots of silencing in the battle. So that's a significant amount when you consider that there's only 24 actions in the battle, 8 times 3, right? 8 turns, 3 rows. So that's basically for over a third of the battle, you've stopped your opponent from being able to get off any combat skills against you. So that's where we're kind of looking at. And at the end of this battle, these troops have got still very high troop counts. You're in the 90,000s on the front and middle row. So that's kind of the difference. You know, the combination of countering and crowd control, combined with a nice combination of heroes that are going to support and heal, you get these kind of results. So that is the power of silencing. So let's look, now we've looked at that video, let's have a look at which heroes silence. So first off, we have got Orochi. So he is, of course, a normal orange hero. You've got a high chance of picking him up in the early stages of the game. And he does have some silencing on his 5th skill, Shojima. And he is going, if this skill gets off, he's not only going to do 540% damage to 1 random enemy squad, he's also going to cause the silencing effect, and they'll be unable to use skills for 2 turns. Now, for me, Orochi has the weakest silencing ability out of all the heroes, because it's only 25% chance. Best case scenario, I think it's going to activate twice in a battle. Now, if it does, it will obviously silence one of the squads for best case scenario 4 times. But really, I've seen this plenty of times where it doesn't activate at all. So, you've got to weigh that up. You will notice, though, if you're in the early stages of the game, this silencing effect can have a huge impact on the differences of battles, particularly if it targets the back row squad. If you're silencing a hero that already has a low percentage chance anyway, such as Heaven's Justice, you could potentially completely eradicate their skills from that battle, and that would be the difference. So Orochi, though it's a very low chance, he can make a big difference in the earlier stages of the game. The next hero is Demon Spear. Demon Spear has silencing on her 8th skill, and it's got an effective range of 4, and it will target 2 random enemy squads. The reason, again, I don't really rate her that highly is because this skill will only activate on turns 4, 5, and 6. It's later in the battle. Really, you want to be able to be activating counters such as this in the earlier stages of the battle, so you can get ahead. It's all about getting ahead. The more troops that you can kill, and the more troops that you can keep alive, the bigger the advantage you're going to have in those first few battles. So. First few rounds of the battle, 70% chance to silence 2 random enemy squads for 1 turn. So effectively, you've got 6 chances to silence, and you've got a 70% chance. So most likely, it's going to silence 4 times in a battle, but you do actually have a very good chance of it silencing on those turns at least. Next up, we have Immortal. Now, Immortal might come as a surprise to a lot of you. He is a back row killer hero. He's one of the best in the game, and he does have some silencing. So on his 5th skill, after a normal attack, there's a 34% chance to do damage to one random enemy squad and give them silence status for 1 turn. So he will silence one enemy squad for 1 turn, 34% chance. It's low. You're probably looking at it activating 2 times, maybe 3 times in a battle. The reason I've put him ahead of Demon Spear is because it's really an added bonus to an already good hero. So if you've got a killer hero with some CC, that's going to really add to your formation potentially. And yeah, that's why I've placed him in that section. So that's what Immortal's going to do. Next up, we've got Ashen Verdict. So Ashen Verdict is the brand new SX5 Archer's hero. And he's got a really interesting 8th skill, Wrath of the Divine. So it's effective range of 5 and it targets 1 random enemy squad. Now, the hero squad has, when maxed, a 35% chance to apply the following conditions to a random enemy squad, after every 2 normal attacks. So basically, once Ashen has attacked twice, he will then potentially either disarm, silence, confuse, interrupt, or troop recovery block 1 random enemy squad. And the probability is determined independently. So it's not that you have a 35% chance for all of these things to happen. You have a 35% chance of each of these things happening. So basically, if you do the math, it's likely that 2 of these things will happen if when this activates. Now, you might be thinking 2 normal attacks, then well, you only get 1 normal attack, basic attack each round. Yes, normally you would, but actually with Ashen Verdict, there is a couple of things to note. First off, his 5th skill gives the ability for 1 additional normal attack each turn, lasting for 2 turns. So the point of this skill is that it will increase the frequency of skill 8, and it is immune to he'd be immune to disarm for the duration of the status. The other thing to think about is the top end Archer's combination right now is Defender, Ashen, Reaper, and Defender on his 8th skill also has the ability to give a second additional attack to Ashen Verdict. Now, my thinking is potentially at least you're going to obviously have the same amount of chance as you do with an Immortal, because if either Ashen or Defender activates their skills, you are actually getting those 2 normal attacks pretty much every turn, I would suspect. And you're getting a combined elements here. So, the fact that he can actually do even more CC kind of gives him an increase, right? Or would make him a better solution for you. The other thing to think about is, what if Defender and Ashen skills are activating multiple times, and actually he ends up basic attacking maybe 3 times in a turn, several times, then you could end up with it having 9 or 10 times a chance of it activating in the battle, which is going to be more than the 8 times that Immortals would, and that's why I've rated him higher. So I hope that all kind of makes sense to everyone. Next up, we have got Witch Hunter, back row Archer's S2 hero, and on her 5th skill, it's a prep skill. So most of these other skills are combat skills, and they could be silenced or suppressed. So that is, again, another reason why these heroes are lower down. Immortals is a passive skill, so if that would be susceptible to disarming because it only activates after a basic attack. But with Witch Hunter, hers is a prep skill. It can't be silenced itself, and for the first 3 turns, it will target 2 enemy squads, and it will put the enemy to silent state. So you've got 6 chances for this to activate, and it's actually a 90% chance to put the enemy to silent state. And it's on turns 1 to 3, which is probably when you want these silencing effects to happen. So you've got a very good chance of Witch Hunter's silencing skill getting off 6 times at the start of the battle on turns 1 to 3. Now we move on to the Brave. So the Brave, you would have seen him in the disarming video. If you have watched that, I have put the link to that video in this video description. And the Brave's 5th skill, No Turning Back, it has an effective range of 5, and it will target 2 random enemy squads within effective range. It does require 1 turn of prep, and it is a combat skill. So this skill, again, itself is susceptible to silencing and suppression. But 30% chance to silence 2 random enemy squads within range, lasting 2 turns, and this can activate any time in the battle. So you've got, and so each time that this activates, it's going to actually silence 4 times, 2 times 2. And most of the time, this will probably activate at least twice in a battle. So you've got actually 8 lots of silencing. I have seen it activate even more than that, but you know, it's I would suspect that it's going to activate 2 times. So you're looking at 8 lots of silencing. The only downside with this is, of course, if it activates on turn 7 or turn 8, then if it activates on turn 7, it will be prepping on that turn. It will only activate on turn 8, so you'll only get 2 lots of silencing. If it activated on turn 8, you wouldn't get any. So that's the only downside. You need this to be activating as many, preferably on turns 1, 3, and 5. And yeah, it would have to be 1, 3, 5, and 7 to work perfectly for you. So that is the Brave. 2 more left. Oh, first off, we've got Roku, and Roku is an S3 cavalry hero, works in the 3 Sisters combo on that middle row. Roku's 8th skill, Takechi Zaiten, it targets 3 random enemy squads. He's the only hero in the game that can silence all 3 random enemy squads. So this is a combat skill, and it does require prep again. So that's a bit of a downside, but there is then 40% chance to deal damage to all enemy squads within range, silencing them for 1 turn. So he's 40% chance. Again, this is likely to activate 2 times, maybe 3 times in a battle, and if it activates 3 times, you're silencing 9 times, 3 times 3. So I regularly, how many people have had a battle with Roku and you see him silencing your whole squad, right? You'll see this icon. You dread seeing this icon on the battle video. So and the fact that he can silence all 3 of your squads for that round, it could be a killer. It could make a real difference. So that's Roku. And lastly, as you probably already realized, Army Breaker. So Army Breaker is a brilliant support hero, SX2 cavalry hero. His 5th skill, Formation Tranquility, it's a combat skill, so yes, okay, it is susceptible to silencing and being suppressed itself, but it's got an effective range of 4. You'd either have him on your front of middle row anyway, and he's going to target 2 enemy squads. It's a 40% chance to silence 2 random enemy squads for 2 turns. 40%. It's probably going to activate, so you're getting 4 lots of silencing each time, and it's probably going to activate 3 times in the battle. So it's 3 times 4 is 12, unless, of course, you're unfortunate that it activates in back-to-back turns like it did in the video, and then you're only going to get half the silencing because it will be silencing the remaining squad that hasn't been silenced already. But as we saw, there is that opportunity to then be silencing all 3 squads in your opponent's legion for 1 turn. So Army Breaker, absolutely brilliant support hero. He heals, he buffs your troops, he debuffs the opponent, he silences the opponent. I really like him. And then lastly, we have this guy. So Son of Ragnar, he doesn't actually silence. So Son of Ragnar is the SX4 cavalry hero. And he doesn't have the silencing ability, but what he does have, he just gets a special mention because on his 5th skill, 1, it's a prep skill, so it's got more protection, it can't be silenced or suppressed, and also it has this second element to it. So all friendly squads deal 70% damage to silence, disarm, suppressed, and confused enemy squads. And it'll give you a 30% chance to extend 1 turn duration of silencing. So that's why he gets a special mention. Currently, Son of Ragnar is the only hero in the game that if he was paired, say, with Army Breaker, he could potentially extend both of the enemy squad silencing for another turn. So that's kind of... and if then this activates again, right, it could potentially then knock on that he would then suppress them again. So it's an interesting thought Son of Ragnar, and I'm wondering, I'm toying with the idea that, say, if you had a Warlord Ragnar Roku combination, could Warlord's 8th skill activate Roku's 8th skill on turn 1? And yeah, okay, it'd need 1 turn of prep. That then on turn 2, all 3 legions are on the opponent are silenced, right? And then just say if by some absolute amazing freak that this 30% activated every turn, I'm guessing it could, because it would be an independent calculation each turn, right? Then you could, in theory, I think you could, from turn 2, silence your opponent's all 3 squads for the whole rest of the battle with that combination. In theory, but whether it would work, well, it's not going to work. But someone might get it one time, perhaps, if they run that combination. So there we go, guys. That is everything about silencing. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I know it's a bit of a long one. I just had quite a few heroes to cover, 9 heroes to cover in this one. If you have enjoyed the video, why not click on that like, and also if this is one of the first videos you're watching on my channel, then it would be great if you subscribe and also ring that bell so you can get notifications whenever I'm dropping videos on the channel. If you haven't already as well, if you could please share my channel in your province chat, alliance chat, and for those of you in Eden, in your guilds chats, that would be absolutely brilliant. If you use Viber, Line, WhatsApp, etc. to communicate with your fellow players in the game, then a share of the video in those forums would be really appreciated as well. That's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.